Welcome to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations, a podcast that celebrates diversity and representation in children's storytelling, entertainment, and edutainment. I am the host, Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. On this podcast, I chat with authors and creators of children's books, entertainment, and edutainment. This is also a collaboration with the Ottawa Black Book Club. So welcome, Aditi, Wardhan, Singh, to the Melanin Jelly Project Conversations. My name is Olunosen Louisa Ivaze. I put this podcast together because I realized that we don't have enough podcasts that celebrates diversity in children's storytelling and representation. So that's the reason why I put together this podcast. So everybody, I want to welcome Aditi Wardhan Singh, the author of AMEYA'S 2 Worlds.
Thank you.
So welcome. So Aditi, please go ahead. Tell me about yourself because I read your bio and it's quite interesting. So I want you to do us the honors of telling us about yourself, where you grew up, your inspiration for going into children's storytelling.
Thank you so much for this opportunity for coming and talking to everyone here. I am Aditi Wardhan Singh, author of over 8 books now. I have 2 in the making that are coming out this year. My story is like any other authors, I think. We all grew up reading books, loving them, and hoping that someday that we would become an author ourselves, having our name in the best-selling list. But when I came to the US, I realized that, that is something I could do, because even though I'm a computer engineer, I couldn't get a job because of visa issues. And I started pursuing blogging. And from blogging, I went into freelance writing. Then I founded raisingworldchildren.com, which is a collaborative platform. It used to be for writers, and now it's for authors, where I try to promote other authors as well. They share their content, they share content that they're experts in, and we all are trying to do exactly what you're doing here, trying to help others understand, because we're all learning together. So once the site was up and we were collecting writers and we were talking about all these important topics about multicultural parenting, because it was only after becoming a parent I realized that it is a very big challenge and I don't know enough, and I know that I know something that someone else does not. And from that, I shifted to publishing, because that was, of course, the ultimate goal and desire. And I'm proud to say today that me and authors that I've worked with together have published over 14 best-selling books. And I work as an editor and a self-publishing coach, and I love doing what I do.
Oh, great. That is so beautiful. You know, when you spoke about parenting, one thing life has taught me is that there is no manual on the perfect parenting. We just have to keep trying. We make mistakes and then come back again, and you go back to the drawing board and try to figure things out. So there is no perfect manual for the perfect parenting. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So your book, AMEYA'S 2 Worlds, I love the way the quote, you started it with a quote where you said, to have a strong sense of self-acceptance, know that you belong everywhere, no matter where you have been or where you are now. Why? That's a very powerful quote.
Thank you. This book is, after all the books that I've written, is a story about me and how I felt. For those who don't know, I'm Indian, of Indian heritage, but I was born and raised in Kuwait. So my whole life growing up, I was never Kuwaiti enough for Kuwait and never Indian enough for India.
Okay.
But when I was going through life, I will always remember the fact that I never changed in my value system. And that is what always held me together. So when people would ask that, oh, who are you? And my parents are also from different states in India.
Okay.
So it's always been very interesting, because a lot of people know that, oh, I'm from Gujarat in India, so I'm Gujarati. Or I speak Malayalam, so I'm Malayali. But I was always unsure, because my mother is from Maharashtra. She speaks Marathi. And but as I was growing up, I would struggle. I was like, hey, I don't fit into any of these boxes. But when I became a mother, I realized that my kids get to experience the world, because we eat different kinds of food, we watch different kind of content, we read different kind of books. So it's always wonderful, and I want every child out there to know that it people will always question you. It's very natural. We always tend to think that, people should know, they should feel that they belong and they should be welcomed. But the fact of the matter is that there will always be people who question you. There will always be people who doubt you.
Very true.
The point is to remember that you belong because you know you deserve to belong. Your belonging starts from here, from inside. It is not anywhere outside. It's not in a language. It's not in a religion. It's not in a state or a country. It is because you know when you enter a room, I belong in this room. I have every right to be here as much as another person. And that's where that quote comes from.
That's a very beautiful way to describe belonging. I've never thought of belonging in that. I've never looked at it through the lens you're talking about, because from your quote, you say here, people constantly, because I had to write them down because I went, ooh, there's so much wisdom here. I can't remember everything. So I had to put it down in my notes, So you said here, people constantly try to box us into a convenient label.
Mm-hmm.
That for me hit home because from my accent, you can tell that I am Nigerian.
Yeah.
And then you meet people here. Okay, fine. I live in Canada. Now I have become Canadian. And then people go, oh, so where are you from? I could as well just say I'm from here. But then they go, but where are you really from?
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder, should I ask, where are my ancestors from? Is that what you're asking? Because I'm from the southern part of Nigeria, but I grew up in the north. So I speak Hausa. And so the way you've said it now makes a lot of sense, where you said, and you go further to say, because we belong everywhere. So it's almost like saying, you know what? I don't need permission from anybody to belong wherever I choose to belong. For as long as I exist, I can belong wherever I am at any present time. Yeah, okay, so that's great. So back to your book, AMEYA'S 2 Worlds. It starts off with them getting ready to go for her cousin's wedding. And when I read the book, I was amazed at how similar our cultures are. So this is you writing about India all the way on the other side, and this is me from West Africa all the way on this side.
Yeah.
The traditions, the culture, the sense of family. So here she is a bit skeptical about speaking her language. How important is bilingualism to kids? How important do you think it is? Because people say that if you speak more than one language, you get to experience life through different lenses. So how important is bilingualism for kids?
I think bilingualism is nothing but experiencing culture in different words.
Okay.
So if I need to learn a new language, okay, let's simplify this down. If I'm learning computer coding, I have to understand how a computer works before I can speak the language for a computer to do the work it's needed.
Okay.
Same way, if I need to learn Hindi or if I need to teach my kids Hindi, I have to explain to them the slang or the reasons we say certain things, right? So when I was growing up, and there's always stories behind everything. So when I was in college, I was surrounded by girls who spoke different languages. Like someone would speak Malayalam, someone would speak Tamil, and I would be like, "Can't you translate for me?" I was young. I used to get frustrated. I would say, why can't you translate for me? She said, one of my friends told me, and I will never forget. She said, I can translate it for you, but it will not be as funny in English as it is in our language, because it has cultural nuances to it. Bilingualism is nothing but expanding your brain to view the world in a different way. And isn't that beautiful? Like the more languages you know, like I can understand 6 languages. I can understand Gujarati, Marathi, Punjabi, English, Hindi, and I can read and write Arabic. So yeah, and nowadays I'm watching a lot of Korean and French shows. So when I'm watching it, I always, if I see an interesting scene, I'll always turn off the dialogue and I'll rewind it and I'll hear it in their language. And now I can pick up certain words because the words are common, right? you learn that, oh, this is the way they think, this is what they find funny. And that is a wonderful way to expand your worldview, to understand different people and where they are coming from. Bilingualism is, and it's a superpower. I tell everyone, bilingualism is just, you're able to converse in another language, you're expanding the number of people you can connect with, and that's beautiful. So being bilingual or multilingual, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, when you spoke about movies, so one thing a lot of people don't know is that Bollywood is big in northern Nigeria. It's really big. I remember in the 80s, I watched Nagin, Love in Tokyo, Disco Dancer. Yeah, and I'm still a very big Bollywood fan. So I realized, yes, most places I go to, most places I work, I tend to gravitate, the Indians there tend to gravitate towards me. And people don't understand why, because we get to talk about movies. And they are, when they meet me, they are amazed that I know a lot of, Bollywood actors. And I say, in northern Nigeria where I grew up, Bollywood is big. And as you listen, you pick words. You pick words, and then when I went to the UK for postgrad, I had, as usual, once again, gravitated towards the Indian student. So I was always the only Black student in the midst of Indians, which a lot of people found very weird. And then I would go to the movies with them, which was crazy because I would have to read subtitles. Right. I remember when this movie came out, this one with, I'm trying to remember the title, the one with Shah Rukh Khan.
Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum.
No, not Kabhi. I saw Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum many years before that, but there was one where they were X-raying marriage. So it had Amitabh Bachchan, it had his son, Preeti Zinta.
Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna.
Yes, that one. I went to the movies with my friend. Okay. I was the only African sitting in there. And I'm sure a lot of people were wondering, what the hell is she doing there? It is still this thing of, you grow up with something, it becomes a part of you, and then it doesn't seem weird anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going back to this story now, and you've just told me the importance of bilingualism. Okay, so now that people are moving to different parts of the world, there's still this sentiment, okay, yes, you are an Indian woman. How do you keep your culture authentic? Because I'm reading this story of AMEYA, and I'm seeing, I look at it and I actually feel for her. Because some children, her experience can go two ways. Either some children coming in from the US to India will feel, oh, I'm better than them. Or some will come in and go, oh, I'm not good enough. Yeah. So how do you keep the culture authentic when you are raising children so far away from, if I say home, you've just explained now that home is where you are at any given time. So how do you keep the culture authentic? Because we must admit, through the years, it's been watered down by so many, mixtures, people marrying different races, different cultures. How do you keep it authentic?
You don't. You don't. You welcome different cultures. You welcome a twist on your culture, and you make that your home culture. So I in my new books, I'm talking about heritage culture versus home culture. Okay. And that is something people find very interesting. They're like, oh, those are two different things. I said, yes, because in my home currently, the food, if it's chicken, even if it's tandoori chicken, it is served with mashed potatoes on the side. That is not Indian, right? Yes, it's not. But it's my home culture. It is what it is. And which is why I have to speak to what you said, which is not part of your question, but I'm going to still make it a question, is what do you do when you're not feeling good enough? Because that is something that will happen when you know for a fact your culture is not authentic. Because it cannot be. We are moving, we are flowing, we are like water taking things with us, right? We are taking small particles of everything with us. Like you brought Bollywood is now part of you. If you see Shah Rukh, if you ever saw Shah Rukh Khan, you would be like, oh, this is a guy I knew, right? Yes, that's him. I know this guy. I know who he is. But if a person does not know who Shah Rukh Khan is, he's just like walking on the street, like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. But Shah Rukh Khan is like humongous in Indian culture. He's a part of Indian culture because of Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, right? That movie.
I've seen that movie too.
Yes, and
I've
that movie
seen
is
that
like
movie, yeah.
that movie has been a bestseller, for a lack of better word, for 30 years in India.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and I'm getting goosebumps. But what do you do?
Yeah, me too. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, and even in that movie, actually, this whole topic is discussed because that's what they consider. That there's this scene, if you remember, where Anupam Kher says that he says Amrish Puri, the girl's father, taunts the boy's father, saying that, oh, you know, your clothes are all English, but you sound so Indian. And the boy's father responds that, don't look at my clothes. I roam around with India in my heart. And that is where not being good enough comes to, is no matter where you go, just like belonging, you need to know that whoever you are, whoever you are good enough. When I joined a job last year for 3-4 months, and the people there were very fascinated because I was one of the two Indians there. Okay. And they were like, oh, you know, so why do you do this in your culture? Why do you do that? They would expect me to explain it to them. And I would explain it. But I would always put the caveat that you need to remember my answers are not typically Indian because I grew up in Kuwait. And my culture is not, my thought process is not Indian because I don't believe in certain things that many Indians do. I don't understand certain things that Hindus do. I don't know why they do that. I don't know why someone would choose to not eat non-veg on certain days. I mean, I get it why they do it, but I don't understand the logic behind it.
Okay.
So when I explain my culture, it is how I understand my culture is what I'm explaining to you. And how to keep it authentic is, if you wish to, is always, if you really want to keep your culture authentic, and this I'm saying with great seriousness, please read scriptures, please understand the Bible or the Ramayana or the Mahabharata. Read the Vedas, understand them, understand the meaning behind them, and then understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because if you do not know your why, if you don't know why you're putting turmeric powder in your vegetables, you will not continue to do it. You will let go of it. Turmeric is a great healer. It keeps you healthy. It's a great immunity builder. So that is why we put it in all our foods. So if such things, if you know why you're doing it, you're going to keep continuing to do it, and you can teach your kids also, and they will continue to do it. And that is how you can stay as authentic, if you want to, as possible.
I think another thing with authenticity and cultural practices, many times, these days, the challenge we're having is now we are bringing a lot of logic into it. I'll explain why. If you look at a lot of things we do in our cultures, sometimes I think it's just sentiment.
Yes.
There is no reason. Okay, like if I buy like the paprika, the red one, before I blend it, I always take out the seeds. And I was just thinking one day, what if I blend it with the seeds? What will happen? But I do it that way because I grew up seeing my mother doing it that way. Yeah. I remember I had asked someone one time, why do we take the seeds out of paprika? Why not just blend everything? And the person said, oh, I think if we blend everything, the soup or the stew would turn out bitter. I said, okay, and has anyone tried it and it turned out bitter? I don't know, but that's what I was told. So I said, oh, I will try it one day. But I thought the last time I was cooking and I thought, oh, why not just leave the seeds? I said, but what if it turns out bitter? So sometimes is sentiments. 2, just habit. 3, the things we came to meet. And many times we don't question things. We just go ahead, oh, this is how it's been done. Let's continue. Until someone else comes and says, no, why do it this way when you can do it this way? And then they go, oh, you are moving away from the old ways. It wasn't always like that. And when you talk about reading scriptures, different religions have different scriptures. But through the years, you realize that scriptures have been mixed with culture and personal beliefs. Because I feel that people sometimes explain things in a way that suits them at any given time.
Which is why I say read them yourself. Yeah. That is what I was saying. A lot of people will trust, and which is natural. It's a time saver. If you have a pandit explaining a scripture to you, it's just easier to consume.
Yeah.
But again, what you say happens is that they will always interpret it in their way. The scripture doesn't say it, but people tend to manipulate is a strong word, but it's the closest word. They try to interpret it and manipulate the words to fit their agenda, which is why it is always advisable, if you really want to keep things authentic, to read things and understand why you're doing it. Take that effort and blend those seeds and see if it turns out bitter, right?
I will.
Yeah, but it is a risk, right?
Yeah.
You may end up wasting a batch, right? But someone has to take that risk. So that's where those things happen.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
That's very true. Okay, so I had written it down here, when I read about, belonging, you had talked about belonging. So my question here now would be, what defines a person's sense of belonging and authenticity? So as a parent raising multicultural kids, because it was from your write-up, I saw third culture kids. I never thought of that. Because we just feel that, oh yes, as a parent, the way you were raised, everything is set in stone. You bring your children. I saw a post you put where you said your son had a misunderstanding, and he talked, and some words were said, and he talked back. Growing up, you could not talk back to your parents. Even if they were wrong, you could not talk back to your parents. But children these days are, let me not use the word talking back, they are just asking why.
Yeah.
And as parents, you feel offended. Why are you asking me? I'm your parent. Do it because I've said so. Yeah. So how do you define a child's sense of belonging and authenticity in this new world?
So coming back to what you said in that post, which I shared yesterday, was my son and I had an argument. Of course, I've been down with COVID, and of course I've short on my patience, and it's very natural to have an argument with someone when you're like this, right? You're talking here, they're talking from here.
Yeah.
After some time, he came to me and he himself explained things and said that no, what I was saying was not what you were thinking. You need to look at things from my perspective. And yes, I see where you're coming from. And then he changed the words.
Okay.
Because we gave each other the space, and because over the past 12 years that I've been raising him, I have always made the effort of saying when I'm wrong, explaining to him and saying what measures I would take when I am wrong. Okay. The same thing happens to help kids understand a sense of belonging. My first book, Strong Roots Have No Fear, is about this very topic, about how do we give our kids a strong value system when the world is shaking them up, is shaking their beliefs, is confusing them. How do you give your kids a strong value system so that their roots are right where they are? So even if their leaves are moving, even if their branches are getting broken, they have the value system to go back to. When they enter a room, they can say that, no, it's fine. If you have a problem with me, I understand that we are on a different perspective right now, and that's fine. You don't have to understand me. A lot of not having a sense of belonging comes from being unsure yourself and having people question you. And then you're like, oh, okay, but I don't know. But point of the matter is that people are going to question you all the time. When you apply for jobs, when you are getting married, when you have a girlfriend, people are going to question you and judge you all the time. So you have to be able to give your kids a strong value system. And by value system, I'm not just talking about race, culture, which are important, which are extremely important, but also about how to be a good person in spite of someone being mean to you. How to be a better person in the face of adversity, in the face of failure. And all of these things, when they're combined, is what help kids understand their sense of belonging. Because belonging, again, like I said earlier, it comes from inside. It comes from a confidence knowing that I am who I am. I know who I am. My sense of belonging is not defined by how you see it. I see people nowadays just looking. Sometimes I'll go in a room and I can see what is important to people. Either they'll ask where I'm from, or they'll ask, oh, do you speak this language? Or they'll look at me top to bottom that, oh, she's a little heavy. Or they'll look at me, or yeah, and or they look at me top to bottom and say, oh, she's not wearing any branded stuff. There are different reasons for people to box you.
Yes.
But I know my religion, my my religion does not define me. My words do. I'm an author first, I'm a mother first, I'm a daughter, and I'm playing those roles well. I'm doing my best every single day. Can you claim to do the same thing? If you can, good for you. We are not in a competition. But if you cannot, you still cannot point a finger at me. Because the minute you point a finger at me, you're certainly not being a better, good human being. And that's where the whole conversation stops.
Yeah, that's very deep, because sometimes I wonder, I always say this, I don't know what I'm not told. I try my best not to make assumptions. I would rather ask you. If I can ask you, I would just go, oh, Aditi, why do you do this? Because you see, when you just spoke now, you spoke about being heavy and so on. I get that a lot because I'm tall, I'm 5'11". So, and then I'm gray. So for a room, when I walk into a room, if I don't do small talk. I learned small talk. When you come to the West here, you need to learn small talk. Back home, if I don't know you, I don't talk to you and I just sit quietly and it's fine. But here you learn it. Someone said to me, Louisa, until I actually got to talk to you, I didn't know you were actually fun. So what you've said makes a lot of sense. So how important do you think it is for us to tell diverse and inclusive stories? Because our countries as being, no, let me not use the word our countries, because now I'm in Canada, you are in the US, so we belong here.
Yeah.
But as people originally from countries that were once British colonies, our literature, the staple in our education was the British curriculum. So I grew up with Barbies. I grew up reading all the British Enid Blytons and all of that. How important do you think it is for children to open up books and see children that look like them? How important do you think that is?
I will be honest, I did not think very importantly recently. When I started writing, Louisa, I will be very honest, I wanted to create tools to help people. Because just like you, I grew up on Archie's, I grew up on Enid Blyton, I grew up reading Amar Chitra Katha also, which is an Indian mythological stories. Okay. I never thought once that, oh, there's no one like me who's on books. That was never. Every single time I read a book, I took away a lesson from. Even Archie's, I used to take away lessons because they do have a lot of lessons in them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would take away lessons. So when I started writing, I was like, wow, I want to tell stories. I have this medium. I want to tell stories which can be used as tools by kids to give them a sense of belonging, body positivity, like how our Skin Sparkles is about racism and colorism, how our Smaller Tall is about body positivity, Sparkles of Joy is about how we can all be different and yet be same in our cultures. So they were all tools, right? They were all just ways in which the kids get a fun story and a lesson, because I want to create a legacy which I can be proud of. But 3 days ago, the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, she read my book, How Our Skin Sparkles. She read this one. And seeing her read a story which was about Lord Krishna, it was a story, my story. So just to give everyone who's watching reference, my stories are trying to bring a balance between culture and modern life, or culture and science. That's what I strive to do. So how our Skin Sparkles and Smaller Tall take the examples of Hindu mythology and use them along with science and bring the story together. Okay. So that is how she read that story. And by the end of it, I saw her reading and I was like, wow, because of my book, she has learned today about Lord Krishna and Yashoda. She would never know. She knows 2 Indian names. She knows a bunch of Indian foods that are shakkar pare, which she's Indian foods that are not butter chicken. She's heard new words that are Indian foods.
Yes.
And that is when the power of representation hit me. Because I was just being my authentic self. I was not trying to create representation in books. I was trying to create messages. But the representation aspect is now hitting me, that when a person who is Caucasian or a person who's black, when they read my stories, my books represent and show them a new world. And that is why diverse and inclusive stories are important. Where you may, no matter what the reason for you picking up a book, but it is wonderful when you're reading a book, it's giving a new look into a different culture. And when you understand, just like bilingualism, when you read a book from a different culture, it teaches you something completely new from a new perspective. So that's why it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's also great because, like, for children from different cultures, when you read books about new cultures, it gives you an understanding and the opportunity to experience another culture and also to respect.
Yes.
To respect difference, to respect and appreciate difference. Because until I started to, diversity, representation, equity, it's something I've always had at the back of my mind. I've always had it there. Why is this? I've always been that child that will question things. Why is it like this? Oh no, why did this person do this? Why did that do this? But I love history and I love cultural things. And when I find myself in new cultures, I try to immerse myself in cultures and learn. Oh, why is this like this? Why is that like this? And the interesting thing, I remember my postgrad days, as usual, my friends were mostly Indian. And the first time I tasted biryani. And I said, biryani is almost like jollof rice that we have.
Right.
Yes, it's almost like jollof rice. And I go, okay. And I met this girl who, the first time I saw her, I went, oh, Indian girl, what part of India are you from? And she goes, no, I'm from South Africa. I met another Indian guy and I said, oh, what part of India are you from? And he goes, no, I'm from St. Lucia. So that got me curious. And I met another Indian woman and she said, I don't know what India is like. I've never been to India. And I went, but you are Indian. She said, no, I'm from Uganda. Another one said she's from Kenya. And it got me curious. So I started reading. And then I realized, oh, we actually have Indians living in, 3, 4, 5 generations of Indians living in South Africa, Kenya, Uganda. And they have settled there and accepted as home. We have Indians too in the Caribbean. Just they stayed. And that's why when you see, I was talking to a Kenyan, and when the person was telling me about their food, I said, but this isn't African food, this is like Indian food. Right. So there is a bit of roti, then there's a bit of, everything is mixed, just the way you said when you serve your children food.
Right.
Oh, that's amazing. So I'm just looking at AMEYA now, and I'm looking at how, the relationship with she and her cousins. She keeps questioning herself. And because I went through it again this morning, and at the point I went, darling, you are okay. It's okay. It's okay, It's okay to be you, because there's a question here. One of the cousins asks her. Let me see. Okay. Don't you understand Hindi or Marathi? Cousin Dev asks. I understand Hindi, but we speak English at home, explained AMEYA. You aren't Indian, right? So you don't need it. So you don't need to anyway. Dev says. AMEYA's face fell. Was he right? Was speaking an Indian language what made a person Indian? That is a very powerful question. I agree that speaking a language sometimes makes you feel closer to a culture.
Yes. And
makes it easy to accept you.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think speaking a language is what necessarily makes you. You see, you can choose to identify as whatever you choose to. Yeah. So what is it about identifying and language? Because if we choose to identify as English people and we don't speak the English language, will that make any sense?
I honestly wouldn't be able to answer that, because I grew up speaking Hindi and English equally. Okay. But still consider English to be my first language, because I was in school, I had English and everything. But at home, our culture was Indian. We did everything Indian. My mom wasn't very religious growing up. I am a little bit more religious at the same age, if I compare the same age. In the sense of I on festivals I make sure we do puja and things like that. My mom never bothered with puja prayers at all during when I was a kid. But I think since language is one of the aspects of how you identify, I think it's not the sole criteria. So that's my opinion personally. Because my kids are very proud of their Indian culture. Like I can see their pride. Like when they have in their conversations on the play dates, I see the kids. My son has a very diverse group of friends. So when they are having conversations, they'll always talk about their cultures, and they'll be like, okay, but my son will talk about, but in our god Hanuman, he does these things. So I think it is a mix of multiple things. So language is one aspect. So I don't think that language is that important, because that's what the book is about. I do believe that yes, it is wonderful if you are bilingual. But would I be sad if my son spoke only English and Spanish and not Hindi? I might be, but I would accept, because I know that it's one thing that it didn't click with him. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings, right? Maybe he might end up meeting more Spanish friends. He might have a circle, or at work he might be using Spanish much more. So it might be more useful for him to use that language. Currently, in me and everyone we speak to, no one speaks Hindi with our kids. We all speak English to the kids. So I don't see how that would be a main criteria. I think again it's more about sentiment, that if they speak Hindi, they understand certain things a little bit more, a little the nuances a little bit more. We can all enjoy movies together. We can all enjoy certain jokes together. So yeah, I don't really think, because like in AMEYA'S 2 Worlds, you will see that she doesn't want to speak Hindi, but eventually by the end of the book she sees the advantages to speaking Hindi. And that is when she's like, oh okay, because what is happening with my kids and their friends is that they don't see the need of speaking their heritage language. Then they're like, even though they know, like I have friends whose kids are now older, they know how to speak Hindi, they know how to write Hindi, but if you talk to them in Hindi, they will still respond back in English. Yes. So, but I wouldn't say that they don't have the right to identify as Indian. But yes, I do. Even my students, I teach creative writing. I will always make a point to tell everyone, you are American of Indian heritage. A lot of parents do this, oh, you're half Indian, half American. I'm like, no, you're completely American with Indian heritage as part of your culture. That is should be understood well, because what happens is a lot of people confuse, and that is where the American born confused desi nonsense comes from, where you are confusing kids by saying, oh, you can use this part of religion but not that part of religion, or know this part and don't, but you have to speak this and you have to follow these traditions without understanding them. And then the kids grow up confused and they're like, what do you want us to do? So you have to allow the kids to discover their identity themselves, but help them understand that they are whole no matter what they choose to be. They don't have to be half of anything. And I think that is important, that like how you said, like how I would say for you, that Indian cinema is a part of you, right? It is not your identity, but it's a part of you. Like whenever you watch a movie, you get a feeling in your heart, and it makes you glow from inside.
I sing some of the songs, even though I don't know the meaning. My colleague gave me a ride, and she started playing music, and I went, "This is disco dancer." And she took a look she looked at me, she was shocked. I said, "Hold on, let me listen to the song." And then I went, "Oh, this was when the villains came into the cinema. I mean, the theater, and tried to kill him." And she looked at me and I said, "Yes, I grew up on these things. Great Gambler, all of them. I grew up watching all these things." So it's so beautiful. I think that we are on a journey to global citizenship.
Yes, for sure.
That's, I think,
100%.
That is what is happening. We're on a journey to global citizenship, even though we don't admit it, and a lot of us don't realize it yet. There used to be this Caucasian guy I've forgotten his name, but he used to star in Hindi movies. Yes, I watched him a couple of times, and I remember the first time I saw him, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I was wondering, okay, what's going on here? Then there was this other German guy, bald guy. He was always a bad guy. Yeah, they both passed now, but you see these two guys. And so as a child, I used to wonder, so how did these guys learn this language? How come?
Yeah.
And when I was reading about them, they identified as Indian.
Indian, yes. I was going to tell you that guy you're talking about, he used to come in those 80s, 90s movies. He was born and raised in India, but they used to cast him in all those typical British roles or foreigner and things like that.
Yeah.
So his mother, I think, was Indian, something like that. Either one of the parents was Indian, and he was born and raised in India itself.
So, yeah, because when I with the blonde hair and blue eyes, and then I think the other bald guy, he came to India. No, he was on his way somewhere and flew through India, and somehow his friend asked him, "Oh, I'm going for a casting. Join me." And that was how he ended up staying in India, and he became, a superstar in his own right. And when I was reading about them, and I saw they identified as Indian, and I went, identity is quite tricky. Yes, it's quite tricky. So I'm looking at this place where during the Mendi ceremony, Ameya took the henna cone and started making a design on her hand. So this Mendi, we have it in Nigeria. It's called Leli. We have it in northern Nigeria. It's Leli. Let me go back to that document you shared. 50 gadget-free activities. See, I'm one of those aunties who does not like gadgets. I hate, you see all those PS4, PS5, PS20. I hate them. I hate them all. I hate them. You see, I have this bookshelf here. I call it my enchanted bookshelf. So if you visit me, there's a book to read. Yeah, so I'm one of those aunties who doesn't like all those things. So it's amazing how when I was looking at it, 50 gadget-free activities, I said, we need to move into this. Yes, we need to get to that time, because when we were growing up, we didn't have a lot of this. We had Sesame Street, then we had books. It gave us the opportunity to imagine. My imagination ran wild. You would use you could invent a horse with a mop stick and run around and play games. But these days it's not like that. Children don't even want to go outside. They're just sitting there, on their games. How important are gadget-free activities for children?
Very. I will go one step ahead of you. You said that, your unpopular opinion. My unpopular opinion is, for God's sake, please let your kids get bored. Like, I don't know why parents have this insane desire to keep their kids busy so that they can, I get it, it allows the parents to do stuff, right? They're like, okay, you take the gadget or you go for this class. And even classes, too many classes. I don't understand why one kid is doing 2 to 3 classes a day after school, mind you. Yeah. Let your kids be bored. And worst is, Louisa, when we go to a party and there are 5 kids and they're all on their gadgets.
They don't even talk anymore.
They don't talk to each other.
They don't.
They don't even play games. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? And parents are like, oh, this party is for us. And I'm like, okay, then I don't want to go to such a party where my kid, or if I'm going, my kids know that they cannot get a gadget till before 9:30 or 10 p.m. If we are going at 7, then 10 o'clock. If we go at 6 o'clock, then 9:30. Because all other kids are on gadgets. After some time, I have to be like, okay, fine, Because by 10 we leave. So at least half an hour, let them also be busy. Because other kids should not think that, oh, these people don't have, that's why they don't do it. But gadget, what you're referring to is, my website has a lot of printables. It has a lot of activities, cultural activities, and this list of 50. It is actually 75 actually, which also includes a lot of creative writing prompts. Yeah. It is 50 activities that you can cut up, you can put in a bowl, or you can stick on the fridge, and you can have. If your kid says, "Mom, I'm bored," and can I have my iPad? You'll be like, okay, there's an activity. Pick up that activity and just
pick up the activity and do it.
Make a fort. Go outside and pick up some leaves. My kids, Louisa, during holidays, I don't put them in summer camps. I don't put my kids in extracurricular activities. Never. They go outside, they play with friends.
Wow.
I don't understand this craze of keeping your kids busy and pushing them to succeed at young ages.
Mhm.
I don't understand it. You want your kid to succeed because they have to earn a lot of money. They have to be successful in life.
Yeah.
But you also have to remember as a parent that they have one life. We don't know about reincarnation. If reincarnation is there, great. But you're living one life with your child. Spend their younger years with them. Once they become teens, they're busy with their friends, hopefully outside and not on a device.
Mhm.
And then they have a relationship. Then they are busy with job. Those young years are the only years you get with your children. I don't sit full time and work with my kids are playing outside. I take a chair, I take my laptop if I'm working, or I take a book and I read, and they play. That's also beautiful time spent together. You don't have to. People are like, oh no, I have to do dishes, so I'm giving my kid iPad, or my kid doesn't eat food without iPad. No, it's easier, na, because you're like you can just stuff your.
Yeah, but
I was guilty of it. I have done it too. So I tell everyone, I have been on both sides. My son, when for the first 2 years, we would go to a restaurant, he would cry, he would bawl his eyes out. My husband would get very embarrassed. I would tell him, I said, all the other people in the restaurant, they also have kids, na? It's okay. It's not embarrassing. They will understand it's a kid, he's crying. Then he would feel embarrassed, he would take him out. So then ages 2 to 4, we started giving him the phone. That okay, fine, while we're eating food, you just be calm, you eat, you watch your phone. As soon as he was smart enough to understand that okay, we are in a restaurant, I said no more phone. From 4 years to now he's 12, we've never given him the phone or iPad at a restaurant or outdoors in the daytime. All week they get 1 hour of TV time during the weekdays, no video game playing time, and on the weekends they get 2 hours on each day of gadget time. It's up to them, because sometimes their friends want to come and play, sometimes they have plans to play with their friends. So I don't want to be like no video games at all, but there has to be a line drawn and a very well explained rules that these are the rules of our house. No, but so, and my kids do it. Oh, so and so's mother allows them to play video games the whole day. So that's their home, na?
That's their home. You can go live. You want to go live there?
No, they would be happy. Like, okay, fine. I'm like, okay, no, but you're my kid. So when my kids were small, you will laugh. But when my kids were small, like I would say, you'd have to eat when I would not give them device, right? It was difficult to feed them. I will not. My kids are very picky eaters. But I'll be like, I'll feed them. I'm like, no, you need to eat. You have to eat. Like, no, mama, I don't want to eat. I said, when I got you from hospital, they made me sign a contract. I have to make sure you're healthy. I have to make sure you're safe. I have to make sure you don't die from making wrong decisions. So you have to do what I say. I don't understand this craze of keeping your kids busy and pushing them to succeed at young ages. I don't understand it. You want your kid to succeed because they have to earn a lot of money. They have to be successful in life. Yeah. But you also have to remember as a parent that they have one life. We don't know about reincarnation. If reincarnation is there, great. But you're living one life with your child. Spend their younger years with them. Once they become teens, they're busy with their friends, hopefully outside and not on a device. And then they have a relationship. Then they are busy with job. Those young years are the only years you get with your children. I don't sit full time and work with my kids are playing outside. I take a chair, I take my laptop if I'm working, or I take a book and I read, and they play. That's also beautiful time spent together. You don't have to. People are like, oh no, I have to do dishes, so I'm giving my kid iPad, or my kid doesn't eat food without iPad. No, it's easier, na, because you're like you can just stuff your.
Yeah, but
I was guilty of it. I have done it too. So I tell everyone, I have been on both sides. My son, when For the first 2 years, we would go to a restaurant, he would cry, he would bawl his eyes out. My husband would get very embarrassed. I would tell him, I said, all the other people in the restaurant, they also have kids, na? It's okay. It's not embarrassing. They will understand it's a kid, he's crying. Then he would feel embarrassed, he would take him out. So then ages 2 to 4, we started giving him the phone. That okay, fine, while we're eating food, you just be calm, you eat, you watch your phone. As soon as he was smart enough to understand that okay, we are in a restaurant, I said no more phone. From 4 years to now he's 12, we've never given him the phone or iPad at a restaurant or outdoors in the daytime. They all week they get 1 hour of TV time during the weekdays, no video game playing time, and on the weekends they get 2 hours on each day of gadget time. It's up to them, because sometimes their friends want to come and play, sometimes they have plans to play with their friends. So I don't want to be like no video games at all, but there has to be a line drawn and a very well explained rules, that these are the rules of our house. No, but so, and my kids do it. So and so's mother allows them to play video games the whole day. So that's their home, na?
That's their home. You can go live. You want to go live there?
No, they would be happy. Like, okay, fine. I'm like, okay, no, but you're my kid. So when my kids were small, you will laugh. But when my kids were small, like I would say, you'd have to eat when I would not give them device, right? It was difficult to feed them. I will not. My kids are very picky eaters. But I'll be like, I'll feed them. I'll be like, no, you need to eat. You have to eat. Like, no, mama, I don't want to eat. I said, when I got you from hospital, they made me sign a contract. I have to make sure you're healthy. I have to make sure you're safe. I have to make sure you don't die from making wrong decisions. So you have to do what I say.
Let me show you my book. I want to show you something. Got this read on? Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so, and it's so interesting. And then I went to the back of the book. I said, okay, because it has an activity book, an independent activity book. But I decided that, you know what? If somebody was going to just buy only this book and say, okay, you know what? I don't want to spend money on activity book. When you get to the end of the book,
nice.
There's a letter here from me. This is the map of Africa here. Nice. And then there's an activity guide. Interesting things to know about the continent.
Wow.
Yes, and the hairstyles according to the continent.
Lovely.
And then there is this. There is this.
Aww.
Yes, because I feel that this personalizes it for you. Yes. So I love always having activities for children, because there is something it does to the child.
Yes.
It gets you thinking. Because I realize that a lot of children, it takes a lot to get them to think. Why do you think this should be? I don't know. Yeah, they just go, I don't know. And I go, no, So, from your books, what is one takeaway you want for kids and parents? Because, as parents, when you buy books for your kids, if you love to read, you would first of all read through it to see, okay, what is this book about? What is one takeaway you want from your book for parents and for children?
So just like you, all my books have activities, reading comprehension work, and more cultural tidbits at the back of every book.
Okay.
That is because I want whoever reads the book to take away not just a story, not just a lesson, but a little bit of enlightenment about, so when they are having conversations, they can learn. Okay. But the main takeaway from every single book, be it my two books for parents, 3 books for parents. I have written 3 books for adults, and the remaining are for children. Every single book is for a person to reflect on themselves. That, is this me? Okay. So how do I become a better person? And give them the confidence in themselves. And that's all every single book does. Because that's what I say. It helps you see the sparkle within yourself.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. And before I forget, I need to ask about the writing process. Because a lot of authors struggle with this. You write a children's book. I know, because from what you've said, you are self-published, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you write a children's book and you feel that, oh, there is something missing. I wrote a story one time, and after reading it many times, I went, there's something missing from this story. People are not connecting with the character. I'm reading about AMEYA here. I'm already feeling emotional that, oh, poor girl. What are some of the things you think makes a good children's story? If somebody was going to write a children's story, what are the things to do? Because I know they will tell you, okay, start off with an issue, with a character, there should be an issue, there should be a resolution. What do you think are the qualities of a good children's story?
So I am with all the experience I've had over the 10 years of me being in the publishing world and writing world, my experience and specialization now is multicultural work.
Okay, good.
So I, as a book editor, I specialize in multicultural stories, and even when I help people publish their books, so I'm an indie publisher, because now I have 9 books published. Okay. When I speak about what a book should have, my perspective is usually about multicultural stories.
Okay.
So when you are telling a story, my main advice is always to first understand your why of why you're writing the story. It's not about any of the other things. Like when I'm even talking to my creative writing kids, I tell them, I said, what is your main idea? What is your main takeaway, like you just said? Yeah. What do you want the person to take away from this story? You have to be able to stick to that story. In the whole flow, your whole format should always be focused on how can I say this story in the most effective way, using emotions, using actions, showing the person a new world, and making sure that there is some growth in the character. You have to keep these things in mind. But saying the story in the most effective way, in the least amount of words. That is the main thing, which is why every single book of mine goes through around 40 to 50 edits before it gets finally published.
Wow. That makes, when you say in the least amount of words, yes, that makes a lot of sense. So in regards to self-publishing, because my adult book is traditionally published, but my children's books, because I had that difficulty finding a publisher to publish it, I decided to self-publish. And my God, I didn't know what went into self-publishing. I went as far, I'm showing you this is so, in fact, I went as far as doing this, creating yes, for the children. But it's so tough. I've always had my publisher do everything. So this is the first time I'm actually trying to I'm not a business person, I'm not a marketer. So what are the things that you feel will help self-published authors? How do you think we can put our books out there? If somebody else was listening to this podcast now and was thinking, okay, with Aditi's experience, your books have done well. I've seen all the awards. In fact, when I saw the Princess, Sarah Ferguson, reading your book, I went, it doesn't get better than this. Yeah, so what are some tips you can give me and other authors listening to this podcast on good ways as a self-published author to put your book out there? What are some tips you can give us?
So there are multiple things that go into marketing your book well. It starts way before you hit the publish button. That is one thing people don't realize. People are often like, oh, I want, especially in Indian culture, but I'm sure you have some version of that in your culture, where you don't want to talk about something before it is completed.
Yes, they say you jinx it, you ruin it.
Yeah, it's a superstition. Yes, but unfortunately, in publishing world, as soon as the book is conceptualized, you should start talking about it. Number one. Number two is to understand that marketing a book is a multi-pronged process. It's like multiple tributaries. You have to kind of juggle them and get them going, and they all fall into the river of sales eventually. Okay. So it is a lot of, like, for example, if I just take one example, it is when you have an influencer read a book for you, right? Taking Sarah Ferguson's example. I sent the book to her 1.5 years ago when she was accepting books.
Oh, okay.
That is like 2 years ago. I didn't even expect her to read it because she cannot read every book she gets, right? So I was like, okay, fine. If it is an influencer like that, first you need to make sure you check out what they're doing. What is the purpose of their mission? What are their followers? Are they real followers? And to reach out to them organically and in a healthy manner. Don't try to push yourself onto people that is not appreciated ever.
Yeah.
And then follow up. Make sure you follow up in subtle ways with your time, not every single day pushing someone. Be healthy about it. It's just like building a relationship. And that influencer, when they read your book, it may or may not turn into sales. But that influencer reading your book also carries weight. Then it is your job to market your book even more. The more people know that Sarah Ferguson chose my book to read, is they will be like, okay, if she likes the book, then I will probably like the book. Because my market so far have been people of color, being very honest. They enjoy my books much more. But I have seen over time, slowly with teachers, lot of teachers love my books. So now a lot of people who are white are enjoying my book. But that is where such things come into facet. So for all the tips and tricks, I would tell everyone to follow either Raising World Children or RWC Author Services, which is my sub platform where I share tips and stuff about marketing and publishing and things like that. It's a lot of things that go into, so I can't like elaborate everything. But if you go to the site, go to that link, there is actually, I've broken it down and I've written everything. And of course, everyone can reach out to me with specific questions. So I have to give everyone through your podcast is, do one thing for marketing every day. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, it's just one small thing. If you have 5 minutes, do 5 minutes of marketing. If you have half an hour, 1 hour, do multiple marketing, but do one thing every day, and that's it.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Ami. I almost called you Ameya.
Yay! I did my job well.
See, this is how in love with this character I am. I almost called you.
It's such a blessing. Thank you.
I mean, look, I'm so happy I got this. I'm so happy I got this book. You understand? I'm still gonna get more, and I also leave a review, because people don't understand the power of reviews and how important reviews are. So I would just like to say a very big thank you to Aditi Wardhan Singh, the author of AMEYA'S 2 Worlds and so many other beautiful books. Please let us know, where can we get your books to buy?
You can get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, anywhere. If you would like signed copies or bundling up the books, then you can go to my website, which is raisingworldchildren.com. I would love to have you follow me at Raising World Children. That's my platform across. And that's it. If you have any questions about any of the things we've discussed here, a lot of people often reach out to me with questions they have about raising children on multiple borders or about publishing. Please reach out. I'm always happy to help. Thank you so much, Louisa, for this opportunity.